All right, so let's talk a little bit about what Teams can do and what it is. So Teams is basically just a mask for two primary functions that Office 365 already provided, and those are SharePoint and Skype. So it's really just a mask that pretties up what is overlaying a SharePoint site, and it provides almost the exact identical functionality to Skype, except Microsoft actually stopped supporting Skype last year. So if you've noticed that Teams video chats have run a little more smoothly than Skype has, it's because a lot more work has been done on the back end of Teams versus Skype. So that's why we tend to prefer Microsoft Teams when doing video conferencing. So it's available in three primary ways, and I don't know which way you're currently viewing this, but it's available through the web as just a web app. It's available as a desktop app, and it's also available as a phone app, which is surprisingly useful both in terms of video chatting and attending video chats or just having chats with people. And all of the tabs sort of that you can see featured here are all features and functionality that you can incorporate into the Teams work that you do. So the video that we watched talked a little bit about Trello and some other functionality for outside platforms. That outside platform stuff does not actually work in our state client for reasons that I can go into if you are especially curious, but I'll just brush past for now and say that for the most part, Teams can play with these applications here. Another advantage to using Microsoft Teams is that it does function with the other Office 365 suite of products. So you can do things with Power Automate, which used to be called Microsoft Flow, to push things from Teams to other platforms and other platforms to Teams. So for example, Microsoft Forms is an Office 365 product. I built a flow that took the input that somebody put into those forms and puts it right on Teams. So that's sort of the kinds of advanced capabilities when you become an expert in this stuff, the kind of stuff that you can do. So just a little tour of the main Teams page. So over here you can see sort of the Teams tab. And for most of this display stuff, I'm going to be showing you the functionality of the desktop application. I'm going to encourage all of you to, if you haven't already, download and use the desktop application over the web application. There are some things that you can do only in the desktop application. There are a bunch more features accessible there, and a lot of stuff works only on the desktop app, including, we're going to get into talking about live events. You can only be a producer or a presenter for live events from the downloaded app. So if you haven't done that already, I encourage you all to do that. And after this walkthrough is over, I can go ahead and show you how to do that if you're interested. So on the Teams tab, you'll be shown all of the teams you're currently a part of. These are the small subset of the teams that I'm currently a part of. If you are not currently on any teams and you want to get a new team created, submit an IT work order. And as we talk about sort of the functionality of Teams, you can think about what kind of team you might want to run if you're interested in having one. You can use this to join a team that's already been created if it's a public one, but you cannot actually create a team. Sorry? Okay. So yeah, you can view all of each team has channels. By default, every team comes with a general channel, but you can create whoever the creator of the team is, and this is stuff that we can do. It's not IT. You can create additional channels, which you can think of a channel as a funnel of discussion. So it starts out very generally with everyone that's on the team having communications on the general, but you can imagine a lot of scenarios in which you want to have specific questions like we have a DEC-wide team that we've set up. So that DEC-wide team has a general channel, and our commissioner and the commissioner's office uses that to communicate to us on a regular basis. But you can set up additional channels to have very specific kinds of conversations. So we have a channel that's set up specifically for COVID-19 discussion. We have a channel that's set up specifically for continuous improvement, because we're still trying to continuously improve even in this current situation. So each channel then has access to a bunch of different tabs, and you can create and modify tabs as you see fit. By default, they tend to come with the Posts tab, which is what you're seeing here, as well as the Files tab. And you saw a glimpse of that in the earlier video. So the Posts tab works a lot like a social media site, where you can start a new conversation. You could even post GIFs or memes if they're relevant. But so I can post a picture here of a lean visual management board that I put together. And Maria can respond to that and say, that's great, I love it. People can go ahead and give it a thumbs up or a heart, or respond to it in a bunch of social media type ways. There's ways to set up the permissions so that not anyone on the channel can respond. For example, that's the way the DEC team is set up. But by default, it's set up so that everyone on the team can have conversations. It shows you when people join or leave the team. You can incorporate things like videos, and you can edit things in these posts just like you could for standard email. So where the posts is really great is it's really good for getting some conversations out of your email. So if you're overwhelmed with emails right now in this current scenario between the same group of people over and over again, whether that be a division or a section or just your immediate, an immediate like cross group, consider setting up a team and having those conversations here instead of there. And everything that is done on a team site, it's all recorded and is available for output for FOIA requests. So everything here is FOIA-able, and it's still considered viable content for that. Any questions on that before I move on?
Yeah, John, it's Brian Wood. So I noticed that in particular, is everything on Teams forever? I don't seem to be able to delete anything.
Well, you can delete your own individual posts, but yeah, by and large, it tends to keep things forever. That includes conversations going back indefinitely. That includes posts, but it'll automatically take you to the newest stuff. But what's neat is you can keep scrolling up and find stuff in the past. It's really great too, because it means you're not worried about, oh, should I delete this or should I save it, like we all have to deal with on our email on a regular basis. It saves it all, and it automatically takes you to the bottom of the conversation, but at any point you can just scroll up and see previous conversations. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So when your team gets created, basically all IT needs to know is that you want a team, what you want it for, and who's going to own it. Once they do that, the team owner can manage the team themselves. So let's say you want a team to deal with a particular issue or for your section, but you don't yet know who's going to be on that team. That's fine. It's very easy to just click on the ellipsis here, and it gives you a whole bunch of options. One of them is Manage Team, and it's very easy to just click this to add members. And you can even set permissions based on roles, whether it be owner, member, or setting some additional permissions based on role. So there's a lot of control that the owner has. Basically, all you need is IT to set up the group, and it should run smoothly from there, unless you're Marcella and they set it up wrong, but they figured that out, I think. So They've got it pretty well under control by now. So there's lots of different tabs that you can set up. I'm going to run through just a couple of examples of the types of tabs that I have used and am currently using in my Microsoft Teams. So the most basic one is a document repository. So it creates a set of files that, again, this is all just a front end for SharePoint. So it's basically a SharePoint file directory. You can set up a video repository. So our commissioner is doing daily 2 to 3 minute updates. He can put all those videos from his channel automatically show up here so everyone on the team can see those videos. You can take notes. So we have like a series of meetings right here that are easy to keep track of in one place. It's great. So you can have multiple people taking notes for a meeting. And if it's taking place between people all in the same group, it's easy for everyone to go see the team meeting notes without having to upload or do anything special. You can bring in SharePoint lists. There's a lot of SharePoint functionality because it's just a front end for SharePoint. You can also bring in any HTTPS website, but websites on Microsoft Teams only work if you're using the desktop app, not the web app, which is another instance when it's beneficial to have the desktop app. You can bring in a Kanban board. So when a group gets created, you have the ability to use Microsoft Planner, which is a fairly simplistic Kanban board. A Kanban board is like a Trello board or any sort of project board where you can create bins and then put your tasks in those bins. What's nice about Microsoft Planner is that it interfaces with the Outlook tasks. So when you assign people things in the Kanban board through Microsoft Planner, which you could have on Teams, it will actually send them an email and say, hey, you've been assigned a task. You know, here's the due date. Here are the people that you're working on it with. You can go in and then update its status. So it's really great for keeping track of both projects and workloads when you're working remotely. Some other tab examples. So I mentioned websites. By default, there's a home page that is created on the SharePoint site. It used to put it in here by default, but now you have to add it back in. But you can sort of customize it like having your own private intranet site for the people in your team, which is how I've tended to use it. It keeps track of activity, but you can add little widgets and stuff where you can add videos if there's videos that are relevant. You can add calendars. You can add all sorts of functionality. Anything you can do in SharePoint, you can bring into here. And then you can actually add individual files as tabs too. So for example, here's a previous version of this presentation that I was working on. I can go ahead and add it as a tab because let's say I'm working on it with a whole team of people that want to be able to provide feedback and edit it. You can just make it a tab so it's right on the front for anyone to see. All right, so any questions on tabs before I move on to some other areas of Microsoft Teams? I know that was a lot to throw at you. All right. So it's
questions on the chat. It looks like.
Oh, great. Sorry. Yeah, I'm sharing my screen, so I can't really see the chat right now. Okay. I'll just mention the call-in item right now because I wish I had better news there. So it is possible to get a call-in line, a phone number for people to call into Microsoft Teams meetings. There's an extra cost associated with that. So far, the only people that I know in A&R that have done it have been Penny on behalf of the secretary, so that people can call into those giant meetings. I'm not sure about reminders. I haven't done a deep dive into the functionality of Microsoft Planner. You can definitely set up reminders and tasks at the very least through using Power Automate, if not through Microsoft Planner. But it is really great at showing people. I mean, the nice thing about incorporating Microsoft Planner into Teams is that it's right there for everyone on the team to see it and know when there are tasks. And you can set up to view that however you want. So you could set it up so that you can view overdue tasks. So it's a really great way of reminding people if they're overdue on something.
Hey John, on that though, is this is Marcella. I just want to clarify that a planner board is only for the folks in that team, correct? You can't like ping people outside of the team.
Correct.
Or add other people to it.
Yep. And you can't use Planner if you don't have a Microsoft group or a team. Which is frustrating if you wanted to do like a personal one. Like you can't, if you create a planner board in a team and you want to use it for personal needs, just know that if you type in a comment, it will post that comment to the entire team. So just be wary of that. Like it's great functionality when you want the entire team to know you updated something on a board if it's relevant to all of them, but if it's not, be careful. And we'll get into that stuff a little bit more when we do the walkthrough. So I think where Teams really shines, at least for me, is this chat collaboration function. So you can open a chat window to any person or set of people in the organization extremely easily. So here I am having a conversation with Justin. You can share just chat messages. You can post here I posted just a very simple table, but you can also attach individual documents, and it puts it in a special place on the chat, so you can just collaborate on that chat window with that file, and you're both working on the same document, which is really great. And if you click on files, it'll show you all of the files that you have shared at any given point in that chat. And so in this case, it's a one-on-one chat, just me and Justin, but you can do it with 3 people, you can do it with 5 people, you can bring as many people into the chat as you want. You don't need a team to do that. All you need to do is use Microsoft Teams, the product, to do so. And it also, if you click, there are additional tabs here. So one of them is organization. So if I didn't know where Justin was situated in our org chart, I can just do that and it'll show me. It's really great for if you're not really familiar with someone, but you have to have a conversation with them to figure out where they are on the org chart. Like if you wanted to start a conversation with me, just so you could check that out. It uses information in Microsoft Delve, which is based on the HR information that they have in the VTHR system. So it is as good as that data is. So it is not perfect. So does this perfectly represent Justin's place in the organization? Not really, but it reflects information that the state has. If you start as a text chat, and again, you have access to GIFs and memes and stuff if you really feel the need, but at any point, a text conversation can turn into a video chat, a phone call, or a screen sharing session. All you gotta do is click one of those buttons that are just always up there. So like I've started conversations with Marcella and then hit the video chat button, and all of a sudden we're having a video chat. As far as the video chatting functionality, I'm sure many of you were using Skype before we all started working remotely. The functionality is identical basically to Skype, but with more features. And the video is a lot smoother and it works a lot better on low bit rates. I was collaborating with one of my coworkers, and it was early in the stay-at-home era, and she's like, "Oh, I can actually have a video conference with you," because I couldn't before, and she was using Skype with her coworkers before. It works much better at low bit rates because of the way it does compression and stuff, but when you're doing video chats, I recommend doing it on Teams versus other options. And Zoom has a bunch of security risks. I don't know if anyone is using Zoom, but there are a lot of reasons people have stopped using Zoom. It's much safer for the organization to use Microsoft Teams. If you want to build an online meeting, there are two primary ways you can do that. You can do it through Microsoft Teams. You can also do it through Outlook. So in Microsoft Teams, there's a calendar button. If you click that, it'll open up a new meeting tab, and you can easily send the meeting out to everyone on your team by just selecting the channel. But you don't have to host it in a channel, so you can also just send it out to individuals. Or you can create a meeting in a standard way in Outlook, and then you should notice a Teams button. So if you press that, it'll add a Teams link to your meeting. Meetings can be held in the organization. They can also be held outside of the organization. So if you want to have a meeting with people outside the organization, I recommend just starting a meeting in your Outlook and then adding the Teams link. Even people outside the organization will be able to follow that link and join your meeting. And if people are using their PC, a phone app, a tablet, if all you're interested in is showing up to the meeting for a standard meeting, anyone should be able to use basically any device with the application and attend your meeting. So I just want to mention some other functionality of things. So live events, for those of you that attended the agency-wide chat that we had, I guess, 2 weeks ago at this point, that was a live event. So the way live events are structured, you have a producer who's the person that creates the event, and you can assign more people to that producer role. It has presenters, and then it has attendees. So an attendee can join using any device, any mechanism, but in order to present or to produce, you have to be using the desktop application. But the reason why you would use a live event over a standard meeting is that standard meetings are capped at 60. So if you want to have a meeting with over 60 people, you have to use a live event. Live events can allow up to 10,000 people. I would hope your meeting has less than 10,000 people. But it's much larger functionality, and also you don't have to worry about like telling people to mute or dealing with any of that stuff. It's really great for a one-way transference of information. But because like the back half of this training is more conversational, that's why I have a standard meeting. And it's also great for handling things like Q&A, or if you've got a bunch of presenters and you're trying to manage the content that they're showing. Live events is very powerful. I mentioned conversations and chat logs, as well as the post page, are maintained and can be easily dumped for FOIA requests. There's no limit to the number of teams you can be on, so far as I know. And notifications. So if someone's trying to reach you and they might tap on your shoulder, if we were all back in the office, it's just as easy to try and use @ to get someone's attention. So in the posts tab, if you use @ and then the person's name, it'll actually send them a little notification that says you want their attention. Or you could, if you want the attention of the entire group, you can @ the entire group. And if people aren't using Microsoft Teams, it will send them an email and say, hey, there's a message on Teams for you that you should check out. So it's a great way of getting people to get on board with Teams. Teams is really great at notifying you of stuff. So when you have an outstanding chat message, and it's great because you can get reactions to things and just share things very easily without all the cluttering of emails and stuff that we're all dealing with. All right, so now I'm going to sort of walk through Teams now that, because I believe that's all I had in my presentation. Oh, that's right. Why should you use Teams? It's a collaborative space, even when you're working remotely. Declutters that inbox. You can use channels to have focused discussions. I've talked about all of this stuff. It's really great for team projects and maintaining that. And the calendar functionality is really useful too. So in order to get Teams, technically you all have access to Teams. You don't have to do anything special to access any of the functionality. You can even on your own download and install the desktop application. You don't need IT for any of that. The only part you do need IT for is to get them to create a team for you. So just a couple of things about the way that information is shared. So when you create a private team, you only have access to the information for private teams that you're on. You can open up a public team, but anyone can join a public team. But no one outside of a private team can see anything that's done in there. That stuff is fully encrypted. So just keep that in mind. I'll make sure this training is available to all of you if you want additional resources. There's a whole bunch more in Teams that I'm not going to have a chance to talk about today, but there's a lot more to learn and a lot of features I haven't talked about. The participant limit to non-live events is 60. You can invite the whole team in. John, you can invite the whole team to your meeting just by selecting the channel. So if you do general, it'll just grab everyone in that team and it'll automatically send it to them. Unless IT somehow manages to set up your team wrong, which Marcella found out. But the correct functionality is that when you select a channel in your team, it will send it to everyone. So I'm going to sort of walk through the tabs over here on the left. So files is fairly basic. So I don't use this very often, but basically it just shows you documents you've opened recently. They could be anywhere, but no one else can see this. It's just for you. It's just those files. Calls I also don't use very often. So you can initiate voice conversations or video conversations with people using this. Where we really start to get into some of the functionality that I enjoy, it's up in the calendar section. So when you look on calendar, it's a very easy way to join any Teams meetings you have coming up. All you have to do is hit the join button. When it's, I think, within 5 minutes of the meeting, the join button shows up. It's directly linked with your Outlook calendar. So, for example, I can go ahead and open it. I can edit it. I can set meeting options. I can even chat with the participants in advance when I have participant lists. This is a bad example because it's sort of for anyone to join. And it is possible, and I have to move this, to create meetings in this space. So it's very easy. You start meet now if you already know a bunch of people you want to send a meeting to. To create a new meeting, all you have to do is hit the new meeting button. By default, it does new meeting, and it has access to some of the same functionality as Outlook, where you can set a title, a location. You can either invite individual people or, like I said, select a channel. So if I want to send a meeting to just A&R Greenbelts, and I do general, if I do a meeting here and I hit schedule, it'll send it out automatically to everyone in that group. If you want to do a live event, all you have to do is click this drop down and select live event. And you can invite presenters or choose a role for someone, whether they're producer or presenter. And when you hit next, if it'll let me, what's required, producer. Yeah, so I'm going to be a producer. I hit next, and you can set up then how you want to customize those features. So you can limit it to only the people in your group. You can limit it to everyone in the organization, which is the entire state of Vermont. Or you can make it public, so there's no sign in. Anyone can attend that. Just some of the functionality that comes by default to live events. Recording. So any of you can go back to that original live event link that was sent around for that A&R wide meeting and watch that whole meeting again from start to finish. That it's the exact same link, and you can go back and watch it at your leisure. Looks like they just added the captions functionality so that you can have captions for hearing impaired folks. you can get an attendee engagement report, so it'll tell you how many people came in, when they came out, when they left, and you can also include or not include a QA functionality. So one of the things a producer can do is field questions. So if any of you attended that A&R-wide meeting and submitted questions, those were coming to the producers. We were able to see them, respond, ask you to tweak it if needed, and then we just asked the presenters, who were the commissioners, to look at the questions, the produced questions tab, and they were able to just answer the questions we wanted them to answer, not any of like the random stuff that would come in. All right, discard those changes because I don't actually want to set that up. So Teams, you'll notice I've got an @ icon right here, and I've got an activity red dot right here. I mean, somebody tried to get my attention on Teams. If I look down, I can actually see where it came in, and it's the Microsoft Teams Champions page. Little red dot. I can go to the general and see down here. So 5 levels of distributed work was posted, and that's really cool. So I can go in and look at that, and we can actually scan through all of the folks' posts. You can see people have responded to things. You can, the reason why it's showing up for me is because Justin referenced the channel. So right here, he just did @general, and it made sure it showed up in my Teams mentions that there's a message that he wants my attention on. When you create a post, you can set things like important or not important, or use the tags to get people's attention. So you can, on the chat window, I have a bunch of conversations with folks. You can pin individual conversations. I'm just running through a bunch of features here just to let you guys know what's out there. You can pin individual conversations to keep them sort of on the top of the list. Otherwise, it will list them chronologically. It will create the chat that we are having right now is present in that chat window, so I can talk to all of you here. Whoops, that was the wrong place to do that. There we go. Hi. Now I'm talking to all of you through the chat here. I don't actually know how that... Oh, it's because I had a meeting earlier with Marcella. So I'm only bugging Marcella, it's fine. So messages will also show up here, which makes it really easy to dump that content out, again, for FOIA requests. And then activity will keep track of everything that someone tried to get your attention on. So if someone reacted to your post, added you, or replied to something that you submitted, and you can add filters here. So if I just want to know where I was mentioned, I can just bring up those. At any given point, too, you can start a new chat with this little button up here, which I forgot to mention when I was in chat. It shows up everywhere. You can also maintain individual groups for chats if that's functionality you're interested in exploring. So that was a lot, and I went really quick. So I'm going to stop there, stop sharing my screen unless I need to, and let's open this up as a conversation. So any questions based on the stuff I've shown you so far, any functionality you want to explore, any questions you want answered, go ahead and let me have it.
John, this is Matt Moran.
Hey, Matt.
Hi. I thought I heard at one point you mentioned that if you created a calendar event as producer, and maybe it was with the teams, that if someone else that's maybe not the producer, let's say, forwards the invite to someone outside of that circle, that it wouldn't perhaps be effective. I wasn't sure if I heard that right.
So there's a separate attendee link when you create a live event. That's the only meeting with producer and presenter. So you need to forward the attendee link. I don't think anyone outside the organization can be a. I'm not sure if they can be a presenter or a producer.
And how about if it's a non-live event and I set up a meeting in Teams with staff, and someone else forwards it to someone else within the organization to attend? Will they be able to use the link like it would work in Outlook when you forward a meeting invite? It will. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Unless you've blocked it off to folks just in a particular group, anyone should be able to access that information. If you are interested in downloading the application, I believe you can just go to teams.microsoft.com. Go ahead and post that in the send that link out. And I'm going to go ahead and add a link to this training that I just gave. So that you all have access to that. Because there's a bunch of, particularly in the end, there's a bunch of extra resources. There's a whole video series that Microsoft has put out on Teams. There's also stuff on Microsoft Teams on, well, actually, I want to show you some of, I want to show you guys some of the other Teams resources that are out there, and I can show you how we're also using some of the Team sites that I currently have set up. Okay. All right, so here is the link to the training that I just gave. So you can have a group. So Jenny, you can have a group, but not a team. If you wanted to send an email to that group, it's very easy. But if you want to immediately bring them in, I don't think groups show up in a lot of areas of Microsoft Teams, because I've bumped into that a bunch of times myself, I think. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and just show you guys some of how we've been using Teams. So I mentioned that we have a DEC-wide Teams site. So here's just the general. It's a very simple site. It's just posts. So the commissioner has been posting there every day. He does 2 to 3 minute videos, which automatically go here to the videos tab. So you can see them here. It by default sorts it by trending, and I haven't found a way to not have it do that, which is frustrating, but I can find any of his past videos here. There's a files place, so we have a spot set aside for Microsoft Teams, resources for COVID-19, and then where I've been doing a lot of customizing is over here on this home page, which is a SharePoint site. At any point, you can visit the SharePoint backend. Sometimes it shows up right here as a little globe. Other times it shows up as a open in SharePoint. But if you do that, it'll take you to the SharePoint version of that. And if I take you here, you can see that it's just a basic, it's just a very basic SharePoint site. That's all Teams is basically a cover for that, but with all the added functionality of Skype, and it's basically a one-stop shop. I view it as like coming into work, but digitally. So I was able to customize all of this. So for right now, our news icon just has one item, which is the launch of the Teams site. And what's great about this stuff is it lives a little bit longer than the posts, which new posts come in and push the other stuff off. A series of technical links. So there's an ADS Teams training site that has a whole bunch of stuff on Teams. There's the Microsoft Teams video training, which I believe is referenced in the training that I sent out. There's some Knowledge Wave stuff on Teams if you want to dig into certain areas. Everyone in the state of Vermont should have access to Knowledge Wave. And then I've added some other links here to some COVID-19 stuff. I've added a video panel right here so that I could go ahead and these are sorted by how recently they were posted, because I find that far more useful. And it also shows recent activity on the site. So every new document that gets uploaded, you can go here and find all of those. There's other cool stuff about just SharePoint sites in general. Like at any given point, I can go and look at the site usage and see how many people have been visiting, when they've been visiting, the documents that they've been looking at. I don't know if any of you need those features, but that's all there. And that's just part of SharePoint. So some other examples of tabs in Microsoft Teams. So I mentioned that you can take notes, so it's basically a wiki. You can easily open it up and add elements. And you can do several iterations of them, so I can have a spot for meeting notes and for special projects. You can add document libraries, both in the SharePoint site you're on and additional SharePoint sites. I could show you here an example of me using Microsoft Planner. So here's an example of Microsoft Planner in action. So a task comes in, I can assign it to a person. That person can then go ahead and open that up just by clicking on it, see all the information on here, add comments, indicate their status. You can develop labels, all basic Kanban board stuff. In particular, this Kanban board is actually created automatically because I set up a set of Microsoft forms that when they come in, it creates a new task on the Kanban board. And it's really great because I can say, okay, this came in, I can look at it, see, oh, here's a new lean idea that somebody submitted. It comes right into this bar right here. I can say, okay, I can talk to so-and-so about getting this moving. I can move it easily between the bins. I can view completed tasks or take them back out again. If I had a whole bunch that had complicated sets of due dates, there's different ways to view it. There's like a dashboard set up here. There's also a calendar, so if anything was due soon. This is all stuff that's available in Microsoft Planner, but we're viewing it in Microsoft Planner in Microsoft Teams, just like we're, viewing a SharePoint site in Teams or a document library in Teams. You can bring in SharePoint lists and view them in Teams, and it's very easy to just add a website. All you have to do is click Add Website. It's as easy as clicking the plus, adding website, and then pasting your link here. You just have to make sure it's secure HTTP. All right, that was a lot more stuff on top of a lot of stuff that I already delivered. So does anyone have any more questions with the last 6 minutes we've got? Yeah, it's worth checking. You may already have Teams installed on your machine. I know there's been some stuff with Microsoft recently about getting Teams on everyone's machines. All right, I'm not hearing anyone, so unless someone is muted, that was all I had. Yes, if you want to create your own team, all you have to do is submit an IT work order. Just there's a form for it, but I don't love the form. Really, all they need to know is what are you going to do with your team and who needs to own it, because once the owner is established, the owner can add people to that team as they see fit or remove people from that team as they see fit. So if you want a team to serve a function, whether it's for your section or like you could imagine a Microsoft Teams setup within DEC for clean water, because it's really cross divisional where the work is taking place. But if you want to have conversations about clean water and projects that are coming through and have these like multiple checkpoints and multiple divisions, it's a really great way to break down those silos and have those focused conversations by just setting up a channel. There's no policy on how teams should be set up or the level that teams need to be set up at. IT is just taking all comers when it comes to requests for teams. So if you want a team for your unit of 4 people, great, go ahead and ask.
So I unmuted. I just have a follow-up question on that.
Yeah.
Is Teams a good place to do file sharing, or is SharePoint still a better place if we have shared documents within my small section?
So it works very similarly to SharePoint. If you are, the thing is you have to have a team in order to share. If you already have a team, or if you're going to set up a team that where you guys are in that team and everyone that's in the team is going to be sharing that document, then yeah, go ahead and keep it on the, go ahead and keep it all in Teams. What's great too is that you can bring in document libraries from other SharePoint sites, assuming the permissions are acceptable. There are some hiccups with permissions when it comes to that, but for example, in our ANR Greenbelt SharePoint site, I am accessing a document library from just the general DEC continuous improvement page. So I don't have to take all of the stuff off of that SharePoint site and move it onto a new SharePoint site. I just took the whole directory and put it there. And because the permissions are set up correctly, everyone that's in the team should have access to that SharePoint site. So all of the stuff that's on that SharePoint site that they can already access, they can loop right in. And look at Marcella helping me answer questions. Thank you, Marcella.
So it's really integrated with SharePoint in that way.
Yeah, it plays really nicely with SharePoint. The one issue that I have had is I have not had a lot of success doing, how you can share a website via a tab? I have not had a lot of access. I've not had a lot of success sharing another SharePoint website in Teams, like outside of that Teams SharePoint site. So like I've tried to put in like the DEC or ANR intranet page, which is a SharePoint site, in Teams so that people have access to it. But it doesn't work. I think it's something tied to permissions, but I'm working with Joe and IT to get that figured out. So just some other cool stuff. If you hit if you mouse over your video chat and hit the ellipses, there are a couple of options there. So like that's where I found recording. You can hit blur my background and it will blur your background, which is a cool thing. Teams is adding functionality to customize your backgrounds because they saw that Zoom was doing it, so they had to do it too. The other thing that I will add, so when I initially tried to show everyone that video and then it didn't work, and then I did something and then got it working again. So I can't show this to you because I would have to share my screen to show it to you, and then I wouldn't be able to show it to you because I'd already be sharing my screen. But if you hit the share button, which is the little box with the arrow coming into it, you'll notice that a bunch of stuff pops up. Your desktop is an option, along with a bunch of applications you're using. But you'll notice above desktop, there's a checkbox that says Include System Audio. You have to click that checkbox if you want anyone to hear any audio from your machine. So I did not have that checked the first time, which is why no one could hear the video. But when I went back in again, I was able to include system audio so everyone was able to hear it. The other thing that I've noticed, if you are recording your presentation, make sure that when you share, you are sharing your screen, not sharing a file. Because I have tried to share a PowerPoint presentation while recording, and I did just the file, not even the application, but the file itself. It did not record the actual presentation. It recorded me talking, and it recorded all the audio and the conversations we had, but nothing of the presentation itself. All right, so we're at time. Marcella and I are still available to answer questions. You can, if you want to test out the functionality, feel free to open up a chat window to me at any given point. It's much easier and I think better than having those conversations in email because you can actually have back and forth, and it maintains a history of that conversation. So if you need me, when I'm not taking care of my kiddos, I am on chat, so you can feel free to chat with me at any given point. And that's all I've got for you guys. So unless there are any final questions, thanks for attending the training. Here I'm seeing lots of thanks. All right, everyone have a good afternoon. Good talking to you. Bye-bye.